When the Apostle Paul ended his letter to the Philippians, nearly 2 millennia ago, he told them, "Finally, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, think on these things." He said this because he wanted those who followed him and the teachings of Jesus as he understood them, he wanted them to have a firm basis, foundation for their faith. He wanted them themselves to construct an edifice of faith, of belief, that was not only exclusively theirs, but would endure and bring them the comfort, the hope that he knew was possible through a belief in truth. I'm going to share with you this morning the foundation that I have built for my own faith. It's a very personal expression, and to some degree a little eccentric, not defensible because I have no wish to defend it. But you might want to, in some way, emulate it. This morning, in your order of service, there's a handout which will allow you to follow me through my statement of belief, but it'll offer you an opportunity to construct yours if you wish, or if you don't. This is not a class, so nobody's going to grade what you say, and no one need ever see it. You can keep it entirely to yourself. But it is my credo. Now, what does the word credo mean? It means, in Latin, I believe. And yet it means much more, because the phrase I believe indicates a cerebral activity, an intellectual activity that takes place here. For example, I may believe that the traffic light is not going to change before I go through it. Once or twice it has. That's intellectual assent. But the word credo really means something much deeper. It means not intellectual assent. It means a heartfelt and deep belief that there is something, some words, a statement that I can really pin my hopes on. And I have struggled for many, many, many years to come up with a credo. And I must say that my credo, as you see it today, revealed in all its nakedness, is not necessarily where I want to leave it. I may change it this evening. One of the things that I love about our founders, the Fillmores, was that they said they reserved the right to change their minds from day to day. And so do I. This is my credo as it stands. And I invite you to follow through it with me if you want. I believe in a purpose for my existence. Well, some of you may say, well, that's a stupid jackass thing to say. Of course there's a purpose for my existence. No, not everybody shares. You would be amazed. You would be surprised at how many people I have met during my ministerial and academic lives who have come to me and said, life is meaningless. There is no purpose. Alas and alas. We are just a conglomeration of atoms thrown together at random. We as featherless bipeds have no purpose whatsoever. We blunder from oblivion to oblivion. You can see why I once thought of going on the stage, can't you? I did have 6 months with the Royal Shakespeare Company at one time. But I'm never sure whether they threw me out or whether I decided to leave, but I was a novice. It was a trial period. My trial, as it turned out. Seriously, I mean, there are so many of us who don't believe that our lives have a purpose, but I am utterly convinced that our lives are purposive and purposeful. And the more we affirm that belief, the greater there dawns upon us the realization that this is the case. We are here for a reason, because reason lies behind purpose. You can't have purpose without reason behind it. You've heard us already this morning say that we're in the right place at the right time. And this in unity we believe. We are here because we need to be here, not because God necessarily wills it. Not because God may be punishing or rewarding us. Not because this may be our 15th reincarnation. We can talk about reincarnation at another time. We are here because we need to be here in order, I think, to learn and to grow. I believe in something called the soul. We've heard the soul mentioned too this morning. What is the soul? I don't think you can pickle the soul in a bottle of formaldehyde. I think I meant to say formalin, as a matter of fact. My medical friends correct me always on that point. I don't think we're ever going to see a soul pickled in a bottle of formalin. I don't think we're going to have a doctor say, tomorrow I'm doing a soul transplant. Can you imagine what that would cost? The soul is the sum total of our thinking and feeling, of our discovered selves at any given point. It's not a thing. We talk about the soul in allegorical terms. We talk about the soul and we understand what we mean when we say that. The ancient Greeks thought the soul was an entity. They thought it was back here in the occipital opening, and that when we died it would fly wherever it was going to fly from that occipital opening. We've all got a little hole at the back of our skulls. Descartes, the great French philosopher, thought that the soul resided in the pituitary gland. Well, why would he think that? I'm never quite sure. Why in the pituitary gland? Because I suppose he was thinking of growth and soul and whatnot, but equally fallacious. The soul is a concept. We know instinctively what it means, and in unity we teach that the soul fundamentally is consciousness. It's the sum total of who and what we are at any given moment in our existence. I'll say that again. It is the sum total of who and what we are at any given moment of our existence. This is the soul, or the soul consciousness, if you want to elaborate, the soul consciousness. I think we are here because the purpose to which I have alluded has to do with soul growth. We grow while we are here. Why is this so? Don't ask me why. I don't know why. But I sense it to be the truth. That we grow into a greater and fuller understanding of who and what we are and of what our Creator is. And as we grow in that understanding, I think we find confirmation that God is that one intelligent life that we represent or that we demonstrate by virtue of our existence. Now, I do believe that we are one with God and God is one with us. I do not believe in separation, even though our language, as it has been devised and constructed and taught, and analyzed over the centuries. We are creatures of the Word. We are zoon logoi, as the Greeks used to say, animals that have the Word. We have, over those centuries, millennia, constructed a view of the universe in which we live, dependent upon our linguistic abilities, which asserts that there is a separation, a division between ourselves and God. We are here, God is there. And that was confirmed for countless millennia by societies that we don't even remember now, that had gods that they would propitiate, that they were afraid of. But when you think of the one God as the all-inclusive universe, as the very cosmos in which you live, then those thoughts of division, of separation, of duality are naturally erased, even though our language doesn't catch up. So you won't be surprised if here in Unity we sometimes pray to God. We're not really. We believe and affirm that we are one with God and God is one with us. That there is no separation, save the separation that we impose by virtue of our ignorance or by virtue of our linguistic shortcomings. In our moments of quietness, in our moments of meditation, in our moments of peaceful reflection, we have a feeling, we have a sense that we are one with God, one with all that is, the Creator, that which made us. I told a story this morning which is trivial and, as a matter of fact, rather foolish. But I tell it to you because it had such a profound effect upon my own thinking in regard to this issue of oneness with God. I was living at that time in Tallahassee, Florida. Some of you may know it, capital of Florida. I had the church there, the Unity Church. My wife and I had the Unity Church. And we were going shopping one day. We were going to the supermarket. My wife always goes into the supermarket when we're together. I never go in there. Not because I am a male chauvinist and have directed her to tramp the aisles. It's because she's such a darn good shopper. I always arrive at the checkout stand with something that costs $26 and she can get it for 10. So I sit in the parking lot and await her arrival. And I was sitting in that parking lot down. It was very warm, it was very hot, and I was in that sort of semi-conscious state that one falls into in the parking lot when you're waiting for somebody, you know. And I saw on a wall in front of the car a bird. Now in Florida there are many exotic birds. There are big birds, there are little birds, and there are in-between birds. It was an in-between bird. I have no idea what species it belonged to. But as I sat there and looked at it, lo and behold, it looked back at me. And we established a rapport. And the result of our wordless or tweetless communication was that we were both expressions of the one. I thought, my God, I'm one with creation just as that bird is one with creation. There's no difference. It may know it is, or I may know I am. That doesn't matter. It's the truth. And that later on reminded me of a story I came across that was told us by Schweitzer, the great humanitarian, philosopher, theologian, doctor, call him what you will. Albert Schweitzer, when he went to set up his leper colony in Lamborghini in Africa many, many years ago, he was traveling up the Zambezi River on a river craft. And he came upon a colony, a herd of these extraordinary creatures that wallow around in the mud. Hippopotami. And he reflected on the fact that these were the ugliest creatures that he had ever seen. The dirtiest, smelliest, ugliest, most unprepossessing creatures that you could ever imagine. If you sat down to draw an ugly creature, you couldn't do a worse job. And yet he saw that he was part of the creation, as they were. It was one of those moments, I can't flick, I never can. It was one of those beautiful moments when he found himself one with creation. Only his purpose was distinct, he understood, he knew it. Those creatures wallowing in the mud, they had purpose, their lives had meaning. Probably they didn't know what purpose and meaning meant, but nevertheless, There was a sort of subtle rapport between created evidences of that Word of God. And we are part of that one creation, not separated from it, not judged by it, not dismissed by it, but part of it. We are invited by it to participate. And that's why I say, I believe, and I am an expression of God, of that one. I believe that God needs me, through whom, I put through which, and I forgive the grammarians for objecting, through whom to express. Look at it. Look at it. I believe that God needs me, through whom to express. This is very difficult for a lot of people to grasp. They feel that, if anything, they may be puppets, sinners in the hands of an angry God. God designed us for his pleasure, much as Zeus in ancient Greece had fun with the creatures on earth that he and Athena and Neptune and the other gods had created. Sad. In the Reformation, Jean Calvin, we sometimes call him, the Frenchman who initiated much of the Reformation, who lived in Geneva, he said in his Institutes of the Christian Religion that at his fundamental base, man, he spoke generically, man was nothing but base and flagitious. Well, I love that word. It's the third time today I've got to say it. Flagitios. Look it up. Flagitious. Everything that is evil, corrupt, a sink of corruption. Absolutely the opposite, of course, of what we believe in unity. We say as we peel the onion skins away, we find greater and greater understanding and good. For Calvin, the deeper we got in, maybe in his way, Freud was a Calvinist. I hardly think so, given his own religious origins, but who knows? Freud saw that awful id at the center of our being. But we in unity proclaim something different. We say, no. There is something in us that calls for us to join the enterprise of creation. There you are. That's a pretty capitalist statement, isn't it? To join the enterprise of creation. We are invited to be a part of the firm because we're already in the firm. We are invited to do for God, for our Creator, what only we can do. That light that shines in us demands constantly that we express ourselves for the glory of that same creative word. Not because some old man in the sky commands it, or that some old man's going to punish us if we don't explore that possibility. We should naturally desire to express that which is in us for the glory and benefit of that which made us. That's why each one of you is a minister. Yes, each one of you. Why do you think I don't use the title Reverend? I don't mind who uses it, doesn't matter to me whatsoever, but I don't. And the reason I don't use it is because you're all reverend. You are all reverent in that sense. The word reverend is only meant to be used as an adjective anyway. You shouldn't say, oh, I saw the reverend today. You can't make a substantive, a noun out of what is essentially an adjective. The grammarians will be on me for that. But I don't feel particularly reverent. I'm not a reverend kind of a person. You know me, many of you. You realize that. I say, join me in the enterprise of creating a better world. Reach out with a smile, a laugh, a word of compassion. It doesn't really matter. We don't have to be great historical figures in order to make this place a better world. Every brick that we lay in terms of the construction of a civilization is our own unique contribution. And every time we think creatively, when we encourage, every time we spread a sense of love, a sense of compassion, we are doing God's work. We are reverent. We are doing God's work in a way that only we can do it. And that's why I say here, I believe that God needs me through whom to express. Some people may say, oh, surely that's arrogant. You should say, I need God. Well, there are times, like when I go through the intersection and the light's against me, when I do say, oh, God, help me. But it's my own stupid fault that I went through the intersection. And if anything's going to save me, it's going to be that inner strength that I have. I've been hit going through an intersection. It was not my fault. It was a no-fault state, but it wasn't my fault. I believe in eternal life, the life before my birth and the life after my so-called death. It always amuses me, in an ironic sense, why people always talk about life after death. Why don't they talk about life before birth? Why shouldn't they do that? If life is a continuum, if life is a never-ending expression of the one creative word, why do we have to wait till we die? I have been there. I can tell you. I can't tell you in words, but I can tell you by reference that there is nothing to be afraid of. That glorious, glorious, wonderful expression of life that awaits us all is not something we have to wait for. We have come from it. We move through this light, and we move through this life with the shutters down. But when we pass, we move again into the light and joy of being. You say, well, what about judgment? Yes, there will be judgment. But guess who's going to judge us? Not God. We will judge ourselves. We will find ourselves wanting, if we have wasted this beautiful life that the word of creation has given us, if we have brought pain and suffering instead of joy and fulfillment. We will answer for that in our own context. God won't have to do it. We will do it ourselves. And so, if you want, you may read this Credo, this series of beliefs. I say I must live simply. I must affirm these truths whenever I feel I can. I say we must live simply because I believe there are times when we need to set aside the complexities of our modern lives and take those few precious minutes and moments, maybe hours, to reflect on our nature and condition. That's what we are called upon to do. It's part of what we are demanded to do. And when we do that, life expands to such a glorious and wonderful degree that we can no longer be afraid. Fear is banished, and we move forward, unafraid, into the light, into the understanding, the greater understanding. Well, you may take this Credo and do with it what you want. We have files 13, all of us, and we can all bin stuff when we want to. But if you would like to build your own Credo, do so, if you haven't already started. It's a wonderful exercise in spiritual self-awareness and revelation. You'll be amazed at what comes up. I've had people come to me and say they can't get past the first I believe, which is sad in many ways, because I say, you know, you've got to believe something. Believe anything. For heaven's sake, believe something. If you would like, during the course of your Credo construction, to come and say hi and to talk to me about your Credo, I'd love to, because I'm innately curious. I'm nosy, in fact. Frankly, it's none of my business. If I were you, I would keep my Credo to my heart, what in the Catholic Church the Pope calls in petto, in the breast. I would keep it there. If you would like to share it, I would love, absolutely love, to talk about it with you. I won't try and argue you out of any of your propositions, and I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't try to argue me out of mine. So you see how sometimes prejudice infects even our highest ambitions, and that happens. Folks, it's your Credo, it's your belief system. Look at it, develop it, have fun with it, have joy with it, and I'm finished.